Hi, my name is Alex Rosas. I'm the Safety and Risk Manager here at the City of Bloomington. During this training, we'll cover personal public safety, ergonomics, emergency action plans, fire extinguishers, accident reporting and investigation, and access to employee medical records. The first topic we'll be discussing is personal public safety. The City of Bloomington is firmly committed to your safety and well-being, so during this portion of the training, we'll be discussing some different strategies that you can deploy to increase that personal safety as you navigate throughout your workday. So first and foremost, it's really imperative that you are aware of your surroundings at all time. So that means that you're scanning your environment 360 degrees often, right? Threats can come in the form of persons, vehicles, suspicious items, even job site equipment, and those kind of related potential hazards. So we want to make sure that you have a good line of sight on the direction that you're traveling. So if you are going to be turning a corner, whether it's on a sidewalk or in a parking garage, etc., you want to make sure that you're going to take that corner wide so that you always have that constant line of sight. And then lastly, make sure that you have a plan of action, right? Every environment that you'll be traveling in throughout your workday will be different. Make sure you have that plan of action in your mind so you know what to do should some hazard present itself. You'll also want to make sure that your phone is available in the event that you need to make a call. Now, we don't want to be walking with earbuds in, right, because that can serve as a distraction to surroundings, but we do want to have that phone either in your hand or in your pocket. If it's in the purse and it's all the way at the bottom, that is not going to be really readily available. So just make sure that you have it close to you and that you can access it quickly. When you're making your way to your vehicle, it's always a good idea to have your keys out and ready in your hand as opposed to the bottom of your purse again. Having those keys out is really going to allow you to access your vehicle quickly if you need to. And then also, most fobs these days will come with a red panic button that will set off your horn and flash your lights. So don't be afraid to use those. It can serve as an excellent deterrent to a threat as well as draw attention your way if you need assistance. And then lastly, whenever possible, try not to walk alone after hours, or if you're in a very unfamiliar or very isolated setting, try to use the buddy system as much as you can. If you do have to walk alone, let's make sure that we're walking tall, that our head's back, our shoulders are back, and that we're projecting confidence.
Ergonomics, fitting the job to the worker. So the main goal of any ergonomics program is to make the job as comfortable as we possibly can. People come in all different shapes and sizes, so we want to do the best we can to fit that job to the worker, not the other way around. So we've all seen this ergonomic setup. I'm the ergonomic lead for the city, so I've seen this fairly in depth. So all the stuff that goes into it. So you see the screen is tilted back slightly. The person's armrests are adjusted up. The keyboard is below the table and it's tilted down slightly. There's a footrest. There's a lumbar support. There's all these different things that go in this to make this a good ergonomic setup. However, if we remove this person and we put somebody in here that's now, say the person is 4'2", will this still be a good ergonomic setup? The answer is no. All these items are only as good as they make the person's body interact with them. So just because we have all these items, if you go to your workstation and you say, well, I have a footrest, I have a chair, I have the keyboard tray and all these things, so it must be correct. We have to look at your body, right? Look at the person's body in this slide. You can see everything is in a nice natural neutral position. You can see that their feet are not tilted up or tilted down. They're neutral. The person's wrists are not tilted up or tilted down. The person's neck is not straining to look up or straining to look down. Everything is nice and neutral and natural.
Let's also make sure that our wrists are in nice neutral postures when we're mousing and keying throughout the day. If you look on the left, you can see that the person's hands are hovering over the keyboard as opposed to being rested on the table. So you want to make sure that your wrist is straight, that your wrist is not resting on the table as you're typing. When you're mousing, again, you want to make sure that your wrist is not tilting upwards, that it's not flexed downwards, that it's in a nice, neutral, natural position.
So things you've probably heard your whole life, basic lifting principles. Any doctor will tell you 3 basic things that we need to be doing in order to prevent a back injury. The first of which is lifting with your legs not with your back. I'm sure everybody's heard this. Why? One, because your legs are stronger than your back. And two, because when you do that, you keep that item as close to your body as possible, minimizing that fulcrum and force on your back.
So again, ideally you want to hold whatever you're carrying as close to your body as possible. The further it is stretched away from your body, the more stress and strain that's going to put on your lower back and your shoulders. Also think about what you're picking up and where it's going, right? So you may pick it up from a place that's ergonomically sound, but where it's going may be on a shelf that's now at your eye level. So just think those things through. Keep that load as close to your body as possible. We also need to make sure that we're not lifting and twisting, but instead moving our feet. When you lift an item up and then you twist at the waist, that's going to cause an increase in the risk of injury as opposed to if you turned your entire body with that load. Lastly, I want you to keep in mind that oftentimes these musculoskeletal issues don't really hurt while they're going on. So as you're causing wear to your joints and your cartilage, it's not going to really hurt too bad until you are at more of an advanced stage. So don't wait for it to hurt. Make sure you're doing things the right way, that you're protecting your body so you can have a long, healthy, and happy retirement.
Emergency action plans are going to vary from building to building, so they're all building specific. Refer to that specific building's drawings that are on the wall, the PDF printouts that will show you where the fire extinguisher, where the exits, where the AED, where the pull stations, where all those things are located. These are the 4 major things that we want to address in every emergency action plan that we have throughout the city. If you are going to work in a facility that has a large population of the public that's present all the time, so say like a golf course, or if you're going to the BCPA, there's also an auxiliary plan that will supplement the kind of core plan that we have going on. So it may be your role to retrieve the AED, or it may be your specific role to help patrons out of this exit, etc. So again, they're all building specific. They give you general guidance on what to do in every scenario. However, we all know every scenario is different. So just make sure whenever you go to a different building that you familiarize yourself with that area. So if you have a meeting in the government center, or if you are going to City Hall, or if you are going to any of our city facilities, first and foremost, we always want you to make sure that you are familiar with where the exits are, where the pull stations are, where the tornado shelters are, all those different things. So what do we do in the event of a fire? So let's say we're in a facility and we know that it's occupied on the 4th floor, and we know that it's occupied in the basement, and we know that there's some folks working in the back section of the floor that you're on right now. If there is a small fire in your area, you always want to evacuate immediately. You can grab people along the way, tell them to come with you. You always want to get out. That's the very first thing you want to do. I know it's tempting to go and try to reach out to those other folks that are in maybe the back part of the floor, or that are on a different floor, or those kinds of things. But we need to first and foremost pull that pull station. That's going to do 2 things. First of which, it's going to sound the fire alarm, so that's going to tell everybody in the building that there is a fire. Secondly, it's going to get fire en route to that facility as well. So that's the number 1 priority. Start making your way towards the exit, grab people along the way, pull the nearest pull station that you can. If you're ever looking for a pull station, you may find some that may be in the middle of a corridor, or some that are near a restroom, or that kind of thing. By code, they're always going to be required to be by the exits. So you can always be sure that if you make your way towards the exit, if you look to the left or right, there will be a pull station there. If you go to Jewel Osco, or to Kohl's, or to a lot of other buildings in the city, just take note. If you look by the exits, you will always see that pull station, just for that sake. So you can make your way out, pull the pull station, and not have any worries. Once you get to your designated area, we also want you to call 911 as well. A lot of facilities may not have smoke detectors, heat detectors in certain areas. So we always want to give 911 as much information as we possibly can. So we want to let them know where the fire originated. If you know that, we want to let them know any special circumstance. So if you know any fine details that they may need to know, if you know that there are certain people that are on certain floors that maybe are not accounted for, any kind of details that you can give, we need to make sure that we give those details to EMS, first responders, fire. And then obviously don't go back into the building until the all clear is given. That'll be given by fire officials on site. So in the event of severe weather, we want to look for the nearest primary shelter in whatever facility we're in. If you cannot get to a primary shelter, then you want to look for a secondary shelter. Secondary shelter may be something underneath a stairwell or in the interior hallway. If you can't find that, then we recommend that you get underneath a sturdy piece of furniture, crouch down, put your hands over your head for protection. If you find yourself outdoors for whatever reason, which is obviously very undesirable, we try to stay ahead of the weather as much as possible. But if you are outdoors, we want you to look for a low-lying piece of land. So if you're on the golf course, that may be a sand trap, something along those lines. We want you to lay down face first and then also put the hands over the back of your head for protection.
In the event of a life-threatening emergency, we need to call 911 as soon as possible. Under no circumstances should we be driving an individual to the emergency room in a life-threatening emergency, right? Something else to keep in mind is that it may be necessary to have persons staged in the workplace, maybe along the street or at different ends of the building, to make sure that these first responders get to the person in need in adequate time.
If there were to be an active shooter event, there are 3 things that we want you to remember. In order of preference, we want you to run to escape from the situation as soon as possible. If that is not possible, if there is somebody that is near your area and or blocking your path of exit, then we want you to hide. So we want you to lock the door if possible, turn off the lights, silence your cell phone. If that person is now attempting to breach your area, then only as a last resort and only if your life is in danger, we want you to try to fight that person off. We want you to band together, improvise weapons, things like that. Take down that shooter at all costs. No longer are we going to shelter in place throughout an entire facility. We want to monitor where that person is, and getting out is really your best chance for survival. That's what we want you to try to do. So we'll watch this video here in a second. This is a video that was put on by the City of Houston and the Department of Homeland Security and is recommended by BPD that all employees watch this video. It's called Run, Hide, Fight, and it outlines these 3 things.
It may feel like just another day at the office, but occasionally, life feels more like an action movie than reality. The authorities are working hard to protect you and to protect our public spaces. But sometimes bad people do bad things. Their motivations are different. The warning signs may vary, but the devastating effects are the same. And unfortunately, you need to be prepared for the worst. If you were ever to find yourself in the middle of an active shooter event, your survival may depend on whether or not you have a plan. The plan doesn't have to be complicated. There are 3 things you could do that make a difference. Run, hide, fight. First and foremost, if you can get out, do. Always try and escape or evacuate, even when others insist on staying. Encourage others to leave with you, but don't let them slow you down with indecision. Remember what's important, you, not your stuff. Leave your belongings behind and try to find a way to get out safely. Trying to get yourself out of harm's way needs to be your #1 priority. Once you are out of the line of fire, try to prevent others from walking into the danger zone and call 911. If you can't get out safely, you need to find a place to hide. Act quickly and quietly. Try to secure your hiding place the best you can. Turn out lights, and if possible, remember to lock doors. Silence your ringer and vibration mode on your cell phone. And if you can't find a safe room or closet, try to conceal yourself behind large objects that may protect you. Do your best to remain quiet and calm. As a last resort, if your life is at risk, whether you are alone or working together as a group, fight. Act with aggression. Improvise weapons. Disarm him. And commit to taking the shooter down, no matter what. Try to be aware of your environment. Always have an exit plan. Know that in an incident like this, victims are generally chosen randomly. The event is unpredictable and may evolve quickly. The first responders on the scene are not there to evacuate or tend to the injured. They are well trained and are there to stop the shooter. Your actions can make a difference for your safety and survival. Be aware and be prepared. And if you find yourself facing an active shooter, there are 3 key things you need to remember to survive. Run, hide, fight.
Lastly, I just want to say that if you ever notice anything that's out of the ordinary, if you see somebody behaving in a suspicious manner, if you notice a package that seems out of place, do not just write it off. We need to get the proper people involved so those things can be investigated. You surely don't want to let those things slide because those have the potential for catastrophic kind of results, correct? So again, if you ever notice anything out of the ordinary, trust your instinct, let somebody know, and we'll make sure that it gets looked at. Fire extinguishers can be an invaluable tool when it comes to keeping a fire within the incipient stage. As such, the City of Bloomington has numerous fire extinguishers through all our facilities. Before we get into discussing the actual fire extinguishers and how they operate, first I'd like to talk about what you see here. This is the fire tetrahedron. So picture it's kind of like an unfolded, kind of like a paper pyramid. So what this is saying is that in order for a fire to exist, it needs to have these 4 things present at the same time. It needs fuel, it needs oxygen, it needs heat, and it also needs a chain reaction. If you were to remove any one of these 4 things, the fire will go out. So when you're applying water to a fire, you are cooling down the fuel source, so you're removing the heat. You take away the heat, the fire goes out. Right? If you're in your kitchen and there is a pan that's on fire and you put a lid over it, you are removing the oxygen from that. You take away the oxygen, fire goes out. And there's all different kinds of means to put out a fire. There's foams, different kind of extinguishers. There's back when halon was still being manufactured, there's all different kinds of systems. But as long as we remove any one of these 4 things, the fire will go out. So these fire extinguishers are rated based on what they're good to be used on. So the general principle is that you cannot grab any extinguisher and use it successfully on any fire. That's not really how it operates. Based on these classes here, you can see that those that are rated for Class A fires are only going to be good on things like normal combustible items such as wood, paper, those kinds of things. Those that are rated for Class B will be good for flammable liquids. Those rated Class C will be good for electrical equipment. Those rated Class D are for a very specific purpose, such as in a laboratory, something that has combustible metals present like magnesium, lithium, etc. And lastly, Class K is for cooking media. So think, what does a restaurant have? You know, they may have a large hibachi or a deep fryer. That also requires a very specific application, a very specific kind of chemical compound within that extinguisher to be successful. So this is the kind of extinguisher that we most commonly have in all our city facilities. It's kind of a jack of all trades. You can see it's good on types A, B, and C fires, and inside it's filled with the dry chemical compound.
The city does maintain a number of CO2 extinguishers in different areas. These are commonly found in mechanical maintenance rooms, server rooms, areas that have sensitive electrical equipment. As opposed to a dry chem extinguisher, which is filled with a powder, these are filled purely with CO2. If we go back to that fire tetrahedron I had mentioned, that removing oxygen from a fire will put the fire out, right? So CO2 displaces oxygen at a very rapid rate, so that's how this is going to be effective. Something else to note is that CO2 is extremely cold, so were you to get this on your hands on accident while using it, you may get frostbite, so keep that in mind. When you look at it, you can see the label is rated for Class B and C fires. It will be effective on a Class A fire. However, you'll have to discharge a very large amount of it. So just make sure that you're careful should you have to use one of these. You know, most of these are going to come with a rigid black horn. So this is just meant to keep your hand back. A normal dry chem extinguisher has a flexible hose that you can put your hand close to the edge of it and not really be in any danger. This is meant for you to put your hand right where the black part meets the silver part, so there's no chance of that CO2 rolling over onto your hands.
So the basic acronym for any extinguisher use is PASS. If you can remember this is going to help you greatly in the event you do have to use an extinguisher. So P, pull the pin. A, aim at the base of the fire. S, squeeze the handle. S, sweep at the base of the flame. It really kind of makes sense if you think of it in terms of a garden hose and maybe, you know, a small campfire or bonfire you have going. If you have your hose, you're not going to spray through the flames, right? That doesn't really make any sense. So that's where it comes into aim at the base of the fire. So you want to try to spray the extinguisher on the actual fuel source, not the flames itself. When it says sweep at the base of the flame, again, think of that garden hose. If you just spray one part of the wood pile, what's going to happen to the other part? It's going to continue to burn, right? So hence the sweep back and forth. And with an extinguisher this size, this is typically what most folks have in their kitchens or their garages, etc. This is going to discharge in a little under 11 seconds. So you really got to make sure that you're moving back and forth, that you're covering that entire base of that fire. So who can use the extinguishers? Anybody is allowed to use the extinguishers that is a city employee. However, if we say that it's part of your job duty to use the extinguisher, so if I say you are expected to use this in such and such circumstance, then you will be required to have annual training, hands-on training. It'll either be a barrel burn or, Fire has this nice Bull-X electronic simulator kind of system. But there are very, very few roles in the city that say we are going to require you to use the extinguisher in such circumstance. All other instances are purely optional. But I just wanted you to keep in mind, like I said, be aware of how far the closest extinguisher is and what the fire can look like by the time you get back to use it. Be aware of its classification. Is this extinguisher even adequate for the fire in the stage that it's in now? Am I just wasting my time? That kind of thing. And then remember that PASS acronym, right? Those extinguishers are going to not have as much time to be used. Incident reporting and investigation is something that we take very serious here at the City of Bloomington. We're always going to figure out what happened with a situation. We're always going to look into if there's a way to make things better, if there's a way to improve the situation, if there is a way to prevent this from ever happening again. So what do we report? We've got to report all these different things. Workplace accidents, incidents, exposures, illnesses. By this, I mean if you were to get somebody's blood on you, or if you were to get chemicals in your eyes or something like that. Injuries, near misses, unsafe equipment and conditions. All of these things need to be reported so that we can work collectively to ensure that the issue is resolved. So why do we report incidents when they occur? Number one is we want to get somebody treated as soon as possible. So if you do have a workplace injury, first and foremost, that's the number one priority, is to make sure that you are treated. We do not want you working with an injury, working through pain, that kind of thing. We would need to make sure that you are in the best condition as possible to work. Secondly, we need to make sure that the thing that caused the injury gets corrected, right? So if you twisted your ankle stepping into some hole in your workplace, we need to make sure that's fixed so that somebody else doesn't have the same thing happen to them. The City of Bloomington utilizes a nurse triage service for our immediate needs when it comes to a workplace injury. So this is a phone line that is staffed by registered nurses 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So we're going to call these folks for any work-related injury, regardless of what time of day it is. We're always going to call them prior to seeking treatment, unless this is a medical emergency, in which case we're going to seek medical treatment first, and then we will report after the fact, or the supervisor can report after the fact. So what's going to happen is, if you have a workplace injury, you're first going to notify your supervisor, assuming it's not an emergency, right? You're going to notify your supervisor. They will initiate the first call with this triage service. They will say, "Hi, my name is so-and-so. I'm with the City of Bloomington. I have an employee here that's injured." They will then hand the phone to you. You will speak to the nurse. They will ask you all the same kind of questions you would find in a normal doctor's office. They're going to ask your name, your address, your date of birth, social security number, etc. And then they're going to dive into what happened. So first they're going to want a description of what happened. So what were you doing when the incident occurred? And then they're going to ask for physical symptoms. So what's your pain on a scale of 1 to 10? What does the injured area look like? How do you feel right now? Those kind of general questions. Once those nurses have finish up their assessment with you, based on their expertise, they're going to give you one of 3 pieces of advice. So first of which, they're going to offer that you should seek medical treatment immediately. Secondly, they will offer that you should seek medical treatment within 2 hours. Or lastly, they will say that you should try to self-treat. So things like ice, ibuprofen, etc. I want you to realize that in the state of Illinois, we cannot dictate the level of care that you get immediately. So if you want to go to see a doctor because of this injury, then you are well within your right to go do that. Even if you agree to self-treatment at first, and then you hang up the phone and you say, "Gosh, I really wish I would have not agreed to self-treatment," it's no big deal. You just call right back. You give them your reference number. "Hey, I just called. I am going to go to the doctor after all." So second thing that we cannot dictate in the state of Illinois is where you seek treatment. So we work very closely with OSF Occupational Health. We spoke to many facilities in central Illinois, and we felt that OSF Occupational Health best fits our needs. They know all of our job descriptions. They are very close to our operations. But if you have some issue with going there, then you can go to Advocate Broman if you like, or you can go to any other medical facility that you like. So I just want to make you aware of that. So again, we are going to call these folks for a couple reasons. One, because they're going to give you the advice that they have, given their expertise, to help you seek the medical treatment that you need. And then 2, it's going to serve as a means to document the entire incident. So should this turn into a time off kind of scenario, or should it be further developing later on down the line or be ongoing, there is a firm record of that, so there's no question of whether or not this happened at work.
The last topic we'll be discussing is access to medical records. So as a City of Bloomington employee, you do have active medical records that are housed within the Human Resources Department. Should you wish to obtain a copy of these records, you would reach out to the Human Resources Department to coordinate a day and time in which these would be available to you. That marks the conclusion of the training. Feel free to reach out to your immediate supervisor or myself with any safety concerns you may have.